questions for particular panel members or general questions, anything you want to ask?
A general question actually. Is there a way of seeing social care research has been funded via the social patient benefit stream? The reason I ask the question is because one of the points that's been made by certain people is that the design is often seen as lacking in social care bids. And what might be useful is you can actually see programs that are happening from and see the designs that they've adopted.
Okay, I'll go to Ben first. It's obviously Ben, but others I'm sure will have something to say or may want to.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about RMP's strategy to do more social care or encourage more social care research, and part of that will be a series of case studies showcasing what we've got. As I mentioned, there's a good trial design of a sort of hospital at home type intervention. That's a good one. We've got lots of different designs for different topic areas, but absolutely the best case studies we can produce. This is what we funded. And also the people. We're very keen. We're looking at some. Looking at our portfolio to see how much social worker involvement we have. I don't know the answer to that yet, but if we have that, it's a great case study to show these are the people we fund in social care. This is what social care research project looks like. Here's the design. So yes, there'll be a series of case studies highlighting design and people.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
I would also say that the journals library is probably a really good place to have a look. If you want to search view, you can do all sorts of search things on there, so that will give you some general information. But certainly from Net's perspective, as we develop a specific new brief that's going to cover hopefully social care over the next 12 to 18 months, we're hoping that there'll be supporting information and some further capacity and development work about what's out there in the system. So hopefully that information will emerge a bit more. But you should be able to do some research on the journals library, for example, and other places like that.
So which journals library do you mean?
The NIHR journals library. So it's you just search for that, it'll come up, and then you can do more specific and detailed searches on there.
Okay, anything else on responding to that question?
Just briefly, training-wise, if you wanted to see who has been funded in the area from a training point of view, again, that's on the website, which is quite easily searchable, so you can see the people.
And just say one thing about RFPB. So the director, is it Director Sue Zeebland? It's called Director. So Sue Zeebland, who's a medical sociologist at Oxford, is taken over as Director of RFPB nationally. I think RFPB was a great programme before. It's going to be even greater with her. And if you haven't ever been to Health Talk online, it's well worth going to that and Google it. She set that up with colleagues. It's a very interesting, experiential way to talk about healthcare experience. But we have a meeting. She's coming to the SSCR executive group in early February to talk about links social care into RFPB. So, I mean, if after today you have any thoughts about that, and happy to receive emails, and we can talk to Sue about them when we meet her in about 3 or 4 weeks. So. Okay.
Yeah, I was struck by Joanne's point talking about social inclusion, and I'm just wondering how, let's say, the parameters of NIHR stroke SSCR are in terms of how radical or adventurous you might be around social care research. So, heard a lot about patient benefits, treatments, care, and perhaps thinking quite narrow terms. But I'm wondering about things like social inclusion, involvement. You mentioned, I think it was mention of employment, so mention of building partnerships with other organisations which can support people's ability to manage their condition more widely, citizenship, rights, equalities, those kind of things which are actually very important in terms of how people who may use social care live their lives, but aren't actually generally thought of in terms of social care, because it's thought about domiciliary care or care homes and things like that. So I'm just wondering whether colleagues might be able to think of a really radical example of social care in those terms, and also how far you allow the scope for a research project to be genuinely really led by people using services, as of now, where there's a really good example of co-production, partnership involving some people with dementia, people with disabilities, people with mental health problems, carers, where it's really a partnership of equals, rather than here's a great idea we've got as a social worker or a clinician, let's get some service users in and support this. If you've got any examples of really radical co-production like that.
Okay, anybody want to respond on that?
I've got an example, it's not that radical, but we were working with a commissioner as part of another project, and as that project went along, she talked about challenges quite specific to visual impairment that she was interested in, and how she didn't feel that she had any evidence to draw on. And we worked with her over the course of that grant, and the next grant that went in was entirely driven by the agenda of that commissioner. So I think those sorts of things exist. I think you're right that we should probably challenge ourselves to think a bit more radically. But I think NIHR essentially is a health and social care DHE funder, so it does probably have to reflect some kind of outcomes, whether those be well-being, or you kind of got to make the case that looking at some of those other things, you'd need to have some outcomes in there that were relevant, I think, to the funder. But I think you're right. The variables that affect it we probably should be thinking bigger. But I think that's beginning thinking.
People want to come in with comments or points?
The only thing I would add to that, I think, is sort of thinking about the fact that it's really down to the applicants to really think about those radical ideas. And I think that all the funders would be willing to sort of consider them, but a critical thing is demonstrating, well, where are those tangible outcomes coming from that? And if that something like that is fundamentally clear, I think probably all the funders, and certainly NETS, would be really keen to see those radical ideas, but they need to be sort of the rationale and the justification behind those needs to be really clear, and with some clear evidence base behind that.
And I would add to that, sorry, just pick on the same point, that I think that, I mean, I wrote down before you finished your question, user-led, and you said user-led, so I was already thinking about that. We in School for Social Care Research have really tried to encourage user-led research applications, and we've only really had two or three others that are similar. Well, no, we had more than one actually. The first one we definitely had more than one. But the first one we had was great in ideas, but was very, very weak in research design, and so it wouldn't have delivered any findings that you could use really. And I think that's the difficulty sometimes with really good ideas. I think researchers aren't stodgy, but it's a slightly conservative environment, I think, and we have to be sure that the design is going to be good enough to answer the question that's being there. The question is often very interesting, but the design maybe doesn't fit with that. So I think definitely, I support that, definitely encourage that innovation. And I think also, think about things that do span the different sectors. I mean, we had a seminar at LSE yesterday from somebody who's been working on bullying research for 15 years. And she's well known for it now, carry on doing it. But when she started off trying to get different government departments interested, she'd go to the Department of Health, they say, no, it's education. Education said, no, it's not us. And nobody was willing to sort of take hold of that particular problem and run with it. I think that's changed a lot now. So I think, you mentioned employment. Employment is such an important aspect and activity and outcome for people with long-term healthcare needs, and certainly social care needs, that would fit within the portfolio, I'm sure. So, okay. Joanne.
Is your question specific to the NIHR or to the ESRC board as well?
Well, I think because you were the one who used the phrase around social inclusion, I kind of get the feel that you understand what that means in terms of lives of people with dementia. But I think because I've heard quite a lot, and I echo the question made earlier on about there's quite a lot of use of things like clinicians, clinical trials, that kind of language, and I understand obviously it is NIHR rather than dominated by the SSCR, that can sort of push research in a particular direction, which focuses very much on interventions that need doing to people and may have benefits for them and benefits for the system, but aren't necessarily coming from a rights-based perspective, what people feel is important in their lives, a social model disability type approach, which is still really can be very important in terms of how people live their lives with long-term conditions of disabilities. So, yeah, sorry, long-winded answer, but it wasn't a specific question to you.
Okay.
So to Monica Martin's point, the call, the ESRC and NIHR dementia call will also encourage looking at how people with dementia use other sectors in things like transport and communities. And the joint team that I mentioned, the neighbourhoods and dementia, they have use of researchers, the review some of their research, and they can be costed into the grant for particular ways that we can advise you on if you're interested in that.
Okay, Mike, I'll chat with you. Thank you.
Okay, I've got one here and then one there, so I've got two there now. I've got one here first.
Very obvious,
Just speak up so people can hear.
very obvious question to answer. I'm not experienced research. I'm a social worker. And I've done MS research in operating social work teams. And you've got an establishment that does a day job. You add an element onto that, so you're asking them to do different interventions, different measurements, and there's a percentage required from your resource, your operating resource, to do your research. Now, it might seem less allowable for a grant to ask for extra staff because of the fact that you're doing a day job plus for research elements. So, obviously, a lot of research would be about analysis, collating data and stuff like that, measuring. But in an operational social work team, you're allowed to ask for more ones and seats because you've got 20% more you're doing for 2 years to try something. You know what I mean? Is that allowable a grant, the research side of it, plus also the increase in establishment in order to do the research in an operational team?
I would say in theory, yes. You probably have to think about how that worked, and I think, Ben, you probably view on this as well. I think it's harder, it's simpler in the NHS because we know how to do it, but it's something we'll have to think through, I think. But in principle, yes.
I've just done twice on this, and both enabling related stuff, and we've been implementing new approaches on top of what we normally do. So we're assessing, bus assessing for enablement, doing more assessments, and then doing more reviews and things like that. And actually, we never really got to the extra demand on our existing resource. So we actually, in one of the situations, it was a call handling thing. Someone could ring in the enablement very quickly for initial assessment on a phone call, which is really good. But actually, we answer less calls because we have more people doing the enablement after a call than the paperwork for enablement. So yeah, that's what I was asking really. So we can all think about what it takes to research, but actually the demand on the establishment can actually increase is allowable. We wouldn't think that we're just trying to get more staff. It wouldn't be for that, it'd be to research.
No, I think, it's perfectly legitimate and perfectly common for us to work through a research proposal and say, who do you need? What are the implications? Who are you going to need that's extra? Is that going to be somebody on a research contract? And also what are the outcomes actually of the research might be? What are the unforeseen costs, benefits? So it might actually be an outcome of your research. So that's the sort of thing we can talk through.
Okay, anybody else want to?
The only thing I would add, I think in any application you do, it's really important to separate and think very carefully about what the actual costs of the research against what the actual costs are of the care and the intervention you're doing. And I think it's really important to split those two very carefully. Think about those.
Okay, so I've got the gentleman at the back and then lady in front. So.
Thank you. Do you find research where the primary aim is to improve things for carers and families, or is it only if you work with carers and families, but if the gain is for the patient?
I can give you a one-word answer, which is yes, but others may want to embellish that a bit more. I think it's absolutely. Go on. Let me go past other people in case you want to say anything further about that.
I'll just say yes as well. Yeah. Absolutely.
I know we've got certainly some training awards where we've funded research of that nature. I can't give you the specifics, but yeah, I know we have funded people now.
One of the things I often think about is that a lot of people who are providing unpaid care are supporting people with quite chronic or severe health conditions, but it's actually seen as a sort of social care topic in a way, and that's where I think social care research ought to try and sort of ride on the coattails or more, or control the reins, whatever, of health services research. I think getting more social care expertise into research where the carer role is going to be particularly important on that health topic would be a very sensible thing to do. So yeah, but absolutely, and I think that's one which is, I don't know what's happened in policy terms. There was going to be a refreshment, whatever we called it, of the carer strategy. There's going to be something not called a carer strategy, but something like it. But that will just raise the profile. That's going to come out sometime soon. I think that will raise the profile even further. So. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I wondered what voice or influence you have individually or jointly in terms of influencing governance and ethical review processes. because there's a lot of rhetoric about innovation, but when we come to do innovative research, we are often really held back. And to give a couple of examples, in one study we have carers who use cameras to take photos of those things that influence their caregiving experience. They and the people with dementia in our panel wanted to be able to take photos of themselves, but ethical approval wasn't given. They can only take photos of objects. In another study, we said that carers would be co-researchers, but the university couldn't find a way of paying them. They wanted to go through all sorts of formal employment checks, and in the end, after a long negotiation, a charitable body helped us out to facilitate that. And then a final example was recently, it had taken a lot of time and trouble to get a group of people together for a focus group. We'd sent the formal information sheets in advance. We needed to recheck capacity. We therefore sat with people at tables and talked through. One woman with dementia became upset at all the official language, all the places she had to sign her initial. We couldn't just ask her to sign once, and she and her daughter left. So these the restrictions are actually the hurdle after getting the grant, but they do militate against innovation, and I wonder what voice there can be that helps processes to be ethical but doesn't involve us spending months and months of research time trying to get the approval to start.
Anybody like to comment? I'm going to ask Martin in a minute to say something, but I will explain why I'm going to ask Martin. But anybody want to?
Is that the example you gave of the cameras? Was that through HRA? Was that through the university ethics committee?
That was HRA. And so we have photos of slippers and chairs.
Yeah.
But imagine if you had a photo with people, it would hit home much more fully.
I'm going to ask Martin, sorry, apologies Martin for putting you on the spot. So Martin Stevens from King's College is also chair of the Social Care Research Ethics Committee. Martin's got, despite his young youth, many years of research experience. So he's got this sort of ethics expertise and research expertise in social care, both university and local authority. And we found, working with Martin and Screc, we have a regular dialogue about these sort of issues. So I don't really want to say anything or just take this to think about, but...
I mean, it is always a difficult one. I mean, it's what we do, is balance what we see as risk and, ethical challenges with the benefits of research. And, there are, I mean, I agree, we see our role as supporting all kinds of research and innovative research and trying to work with researchers, but sometimes things go in one direction or another. So it's certainly something I will, in terms of how we respond to innovations, perhaps something we could look at. I mean, we constantly try and look at what we do as an ethics committee and think about the ideas and how and why decisions are made in certain situations. So, that could certainly be an interesting topic actually for us to focus on for a future event. So that's. Well, yes, I think take that on board. But yeah, I can't comment on the individuals.
No. Apologies for putting you on the spot, but I think actually, the point Martin raised there. So in School for Social Care Research, we've run two, I think, ethics sort of training days. Days on ethics, research ethics. We haven't done it for a while. We've talked about doing another one. I think we'll try and get one into the calendar. No, it's not going to, and it shouldn't address individual project ones, and you weren't suggesting that. But I think discussing some of these issues, it's partly about training. I think, I get frustrated sometimes that people have such a limited understanding of what ethics really means, and I think particularly when working with people in that capacity and the sensitivities involved in many of the social care studies we do. So we're going to set something up so provide that training function, but it also could provide that opportunity to discuss some of these issues. So, okay. Anybody else want to come in? No. Okay. So other comments or questions? Sorry, one at the back.
I'm a bit nervous about asking a question. I should have asked it ages ago because it's actually for Yvonne. Hello. And I know I should have asked at the end of your session. I know one of the many things that you were talking about when you were talking about public involvement,
yes,
public and patient and service user involvement, and I speak as a mental health service user myself, researcher. You touched on there being challenges to involvement and there being possible solutions to those, and I don't know whether you have got any of the answers to those. I mean, there are lots of challenges and lots of solutions.
No, I don't have any answers.
That's fine.
But I think it's about, I think there are lots of people doing good service user-led work. I can certainly think of some examples, and I think some of this is about having a decent dialogue about what's working, when it's working, why it's not working. When it works really well, what does that look like? When it's not working so well, what is it that's not working? You know, there are I think sometimes the kind of user-led work comes up against this kind of monolith of research thinking, and we come from slightly different places, we want slightly different things, we have different aims. Essentially we all want the same thing, but we have different ways of getting this. And I think for me, it's more about being able to have proper conversations about it, and not everybody just kind of walking around in eggshells and not actually addressing things when they're not working very well. No, I don't have the answers, and I don't think there's one answer that will solve everything. I think it's about having structures in place in research that mean those conversations can take place, and there's time to do it, capacity to do it, skilled people who know what they're doing. That would be my observation on it. I'm no expert.
Thank you. Can I just say a little bit more? I know that lots of other people want to do. Just from what you were saying about all those questions that maybe from a realist evaluation point of view would be very relevant questions, and I kind of tend to be quite practical as well, so I was thinking at if you like, not a lower level but a more practical level, some of the things that need to be considered if you actually want to realistically involve people. And I know they've been talked about millions of times before, but I just think, you know, those are some of the challenges now, things about remembering about power dynamics, which is one of the things that hasn't been explicitly brought up here, and those are very complex and sensitive areas, and I think, you know, if they're not acknowledged like other things, they become the elephant in the room, you know what I mean? So very complex power dynamics, and there's lots of other issues as well, like you need to consider terminology and language and access and informal spaces, which of course we've not got.
There's a whole session this afternoon.
Yes, I know.
So you should go and share that.
I will. I'll let somebody else speak.
That's fine. Okay. Other comments or questions? I'm just going to give, before I ask you, I will, but I'm going to say to the panel, before we finish the session, I want to ask you to each suggest maybe 2 main things you'd recommend people think about when preparing a research application, you know, or things not to do, whatever. I mean, we've had, handy tips and wheezes and various other suggestions throughout the morning, but just, if I don't mind, just put you on the spot to finish off, so 2 things. But, okay, so over to your question. So, yeah.
It was just picking up on some of the other questions about some of the examples we've had today that have been really useful, but I wondered whether domestic abuse and elder abuse is seen as, being, public health, or seen as a relevant health issue that will cross into social care. Just because we've talked quite a lot about maybe the elderly population, but I just wondered in the sort of wider adult safeguarding, if you like, if that would be considered within some of the different bodies that people represent, if that's the sort of applications you get, and if they would be welcome, really, that sort of topic.
I mean, I think from a school for social care research point of view, I can't see why not. But I think also some of the funding streams we've been hearing about anyway are broader, and you don't need to say this is social care or this is public health or this is whatever. So, the things that do actually, cover those 2 or 3 different areas would be, I would have thought, particularly attractive to funders, as long as it's a good research design and that kind of stuff. But then we want to kind of, sorry, I didn't give the panel a chance to answer, sorry. But.
Agree with that.
Yes, I'm standing up. I can sort of pat them if they don't. That's right. Okay. Comments? Yep, Jess.
I'd just like to ask for some funding while you're all here. Something that I would love to do, and I'm wondering where there's a big bucket of money to do it, is some co-production with care workers, because at the Social Care Workforce Research Unit, one of the when you're thinking about a core constituency for involvement, your core stakeholder is the enormous social care workforce, who are not deemed to be a professional or not a graduate workforce, and much less likely that, even themselves, to be getting and that by definition they tend to be marginalised, living on or below the breadline. There's no way, it would have to be a really resourced, supportive process. But I think a lot of the answers to making social care work better lie with the people who produce, and I do a lot of qualitative interviews with them, so I have those in-depth conversations, but I wonder if they could be having those conversations and building that knowledge from within. And I'm wondering, who would support that? Because a lot of discussion about involvement doesn't really recognise the enormous resources that go into doing involvement that's beyond calling an advisory group of experienced advisors. And I don't know if that's sort of a combining thing. I don't know how one would do it, but one would need to fund people's hourly time, and one would need to support. I meet lots of incredibly emotionally intelligent people holding systems together through, passion and experience. But these are people who have fallen outside of formal education systems and are least likely, therefore, to feel confident and have the skills to be involved. And I think, I'd like to do that, so I want to know where the bucket is.
Okay, so review your buckets. Come on. Anybody got any buckets to talk about or suggestions?
For me, it would be about integrating that with, what are you trying to get? What's the purpose of that? And what's the outcome?
Absolutely.
So, and I think that would be the real nugget that you need to have to really pinpoint to think about probably funding across any of the programs. And in terms of the programs that I see being involved, I mean, it almost sounds, a bit like it could be akin to the health service delivery area. But if you underpinned it in an area, an intervention, and you were asking then about that involvement and then what that sort of like secondary outcome was, then it would become really important as well. So it'd be about how you embed that within a bigger sort of piece of work, I think. Doing it in its own right. I mean, we do research on research in our book. That's very niche and areas that sort of have been identified as potentially that might give. I'll look into it and see if there's anything that's happened around research on research. I don't think so, as far as I've seen.
The issue of dementia could be, it's not an issue I particularly worked on, but it could be an area because it's one of those things that comes up. It's the way people, care workers describe working with people with dementia, whether it's in a domestic setting or in a care home, residential, nursing home setting. They say it's completely normal and intuitive. Oh, well, of course, we always go to Sharon if we have a problem with this resident, because Sharon just knows how to work. And there's all that knowledge and expertise that people have and assume that everybody knows about. But who's gathering that? And how could people gather that amongst themselves?
Okay. Anybody else want to?
Well, I think that the point I was made there is about the integration, because there's lots of useful information here, and you need to get people involved in questions on research, answering particular questions. I think that's the focus down to particularly what you're trying to do, because otherwise it's a group of people that perhaps more than doing anything particular in grants. The other thing I just want to mention is, from a health perspective, so we don't have many of these, we've only got one or two, but we've got research projects where the patient group are NHS staff, clinicians. So you can maybe think of it constructed like that, perhaps it could be about the well-being of the social workers, for example. I think that's a legitimate topic, because as you said, there's a huge group here, not well addressed in the research community. I think that would potentially be an interesting idea. And in terms of the funding, I think that's RFPD and the early developmental work. We do fund qualitative work, exploratory work, to understand what actual problems, a small grant, maybe 50, 100k, what is the problem with this group, what needs to be done?
And if you compare the health staff and the social care staff as the patient group, you find the health staff have got better paying petitions, they take time off sick, and social care workers don't have sick. They never get sick officially.
It feels like there's a fundamental before that, which is about what is it that Sharon's doing? How do you capture what that is? And can you describe it? And is there a way of capturing that in a way that allows you to share that more widely to build skills for other people? Which is, it kind of aligns with a lot of work that does go on in health around what is that kind of magic ingredient that some people have and some people don't. It's quite tough stuff.
Yes, Melissa.
I just wanted to add an insight because I'm actually a trustee in a local charity. We actually do support like the unpaid carers. So basically we work in different user groups. So they are all unpaid carers in different healthcare situations. So they are all different I should say groups, and they have got all their different problems they need to resolve. So my question would be like, as I don't work for NHS, so how to probably coordinate those problems and give some solutions, as a external, probably innovator or as an external person.
So it follows on what I was going to say with Jess. When Jess gets her study, maybe she wants to involve other people here as well. I'm just going to acknowledge this day as all the help we gave you.
Can I just add to sort of a previous comment and the subsequent conversation? It's not necessarily be about primary research. It may well be about doing some synthesis about what's out there. And actually, is there some, there's a lot of stuff that's already happened probably that draws on what you've been talking about, and actually bringing that all together in a sort of evidence synthesis kind of study might be a really interesting way of thinking about it in the first place as well. And that kind of work at the secondary level would probably be relevant to all the sort of different grant funding as well. And actually thinking about that would be a useful first step.
And just to bring the 2 points together, I think that the care workforce, we know has been under-researched in this area. We know how important, Jess described perfectly why that's so important. And I think it is a difficult group to evaluate, again, for to involve in studies for the reasons you mentioned as well, Jess. So I think this is something, particularly given that many of these people, most of these people are employed outside the state sector. They're often in local organisations, whether private or for-profit or non-profit charitable. So I think this seems to me like a topic where if people are interested in this, it might need meeting of minds to try and sort something out. So I'm sure Jess would be very happy to coordinate or something. But it's Jess Harris at King's if you want to email her. Okay, I'm going to go to a question here, then after that I'm going to go to the panellists for their 2 final points.
It's just to follow on really. Yeah. I work in social care, and what is frustrating and what everybody here that's engaged in research can really do is try to influence NICE, who are given this role to provide more guidelines on social care that are obviously evidence-based. And of course the paucity of research around social care means, say for example, NICE were doing a study about challenging behaviour and learning disability, and we were trying to say that visual impairment is a really big factor. Well, there's not enough evidence, we need more evidence. So NICE, also CQC, as the regulator, inspector and skills for care, who are responsible for the workforce, should be much more engaged in getting evidence and actually then feeding it back to the sector, because actually as a social care provider, as a social care worker, what you're inundated with is just your day job and what you've got to do. So you have to try and sort of embed it in some way as to the guidelines as to what we should do to actually get that research out there. And skills of care, especially around the discussion about workforce, they're much more important than health education in England, who don't really understand the social care workforce. So there's really important sort of work that should be done there with these other bodies.
Anyone want to comment on those? On that comment? Yeah, I'll just make one comment, which I think with the exception maybe of some pharmaceutical companies and tabloid headline writers, NICE I think has been a very good force, very good development in the healthcare area, and I think many of us hope that it can have positive benefits in social care. I think it's been a bit surprised by how little evidence there is. But the NICE process is as transparent and as open, as participative as they can make it, and I would just encourage people to get engaged in that at all their various consultation stages when they're scoping the issue. And I mean, the dementia guidelines are now out for consultation, but you can get involved much earlier. So I really would encourage people to do that, because my observation would be they are genuinely keen to have that participation. So that is a chance to have that. CQC have also been quite research sensitive, I think, and both CQC and NICE are on the advisory board for SSCR, so we can feedback these comments to them. So yeah, okay. All right, going to go to our panellists. Sorry to put you on the spot at the end of the long morning. So I've just said, 2 things to people to do or to avoid, or whatever. What are your 2 key bits of advice? And why don't we go in the order of which people spoke? I'm not going to give any because it'd be boring. Dottie.
Okay, that's lucky, because just in case I was last. I was thinking of 3 or 4. The 2 ones I would particularly focus on that seem to come up time and time again for applications that come through to our boards is around value for money. Because you can sit and you can sort of be almost anal about sort of thinking about all the costs you have to include, but actually, will the things that you're going to get out of your research, are they reflected in the costs that you're putting? So it's having that overview of that value for money, and actually really thinking, am I getting something out of it that feels worth what I'm sort of saying this is going to cost? And really being critical of yourself about that, and really taking that time to sort of think that through. And the other thing I would think of is the other end of the spectrum, about where I'm sort of going to the organisation, and thinking about impact of your research, in whatever research, in whatever programme. It's really important, not just thinking about publish something and you're done. It's really about getting your information and recommendations and outcomes from your research out there into people where it's going to change practice and do something that will make a difference. And that is something that comes up time and time again. And really getting to the nub of that is the really critical point. How are you going to do that? How are you going to get that out there is equally as important as doing a really valuable study. Because if you do nothing to get that information out there and have that impact, then you might as well have not done it.
Okay, excellent. Ben?
So I say this to any type of researcher, the research question is the most fundamental part. You can fix the design, you can fix parts of it, but if your question is fundamentally full and not worth answering, you fail straight away. So think back to the programs that I work with, we have things called fundamental and fixable flaws. Generally, methods are fixable, you can change the design. If the question is not worth answering, you're fundamentally flawed. So think about the question most, why are you asking, why do you want to answer the question, what's the background, what's the benefit it links in with then impact to, but I think that's the most important part. The research design service can help you with the methods. The question though needs to be very important to answer, otherwise panels will simply reject it straight away. And then coming back to, so I think, I want to pick up on what everyone mentioned on the plain English summary. So I think plain English summaries are very much under-acknowledged. So I like to think of the plain English summary as your opening gambit to the panel. It's think there's a covering letter to a CV. How do you make your research stick out? You need to think about the context of the panel. There'll be a panel reading maybe 15, 20 applications. What's going to grab their attention in yours? So a well-written one is the start. When I read plain English summaries and I don't understand it, I read the technical summary. I get straight away thinking I'm not going to understand this. Panel members say the same. So it's a very easy thing to skim over, but I think it can give yourself the best chance, grab the attention of the panel member, be accessible in your application, make it enjoyable to read, have the narrative of the story, go back to the question, why are you asking the question, and then feed in with good design and good outcome.
Okay. Peter?
For me, so I'm coming at it from a point of view of personal awards and fellowships, and really agree with the points that have just been said there in terms of the research elements of it. I think it's really important to remember if you're applying for a fellowship, it's primarily about you as an individual. Depending on the level of the award you've got will depend on the amount of research cost that you're asking for. But what the panel are really looking for is an investment in you. So it's about not only showcasing your experience and what you've done to date in your career, relevant to the award you're applying to, but also really trying to articulate why this fellowship is going to make a big difference to your career. Where are you going in your career? What is it you want to be in 5, 10, 15 years' time as a researcher, and really getting that to come across in the application. It shouldn't just be seen as another way of getting a piece of research funded. It is about you as an individual to really try and get that to come across in the application. And my second point, which is linked to that, again, no matter what level you're applying for in terms of fellowships, they are all research training fellowships. So whether it be a doctoral fellowship where you expect there to be lots of training involved in the fellowship, all the way up to the research professorship award, the training is another very important part which you shouldn't neglect, which often people do. They focus on the research, understandably, that's very important. But really think about your training needs, what you're going to need training-wise to complete the research you're doing, but also what you're going to need to do to go on to do what you're wanting to do in 5, 10, 15 years' time. Think quite long-term, think quite ambitious in terms of any training that you include in the profession. It's a really good opportunity to include things which you otherwise probably won't be able to in your normal research.
Okay, thank you. Joanne?
I think one of my points is also about the payment for summary, thinking about the dementia core and all research council grants. We always seek to get a review from somebody who isn't an academic, isn't a researcher, so a potential user. So again, that plain English summary is a way that we can really help our assessment process, so that the peer review and the review by the non-academics is really meaningful. Particularly in the dementia research core, we're going to be including people affected by dementia in the peer review and in the panel process, so that's really important. So then, specific to the research councils, it's very practical, is to make sure that your JES, your Joint Electronic Submission System, details are up to date, and any partners that you intend to include on your grant are all registered on there. Not all NHS organisations will be set up on JES, and charities and public and private sector organisations won't be, and we do get a lot of situations where right on the deadline people are unable to put their applications through because they haven't had their partners registered. So do the practical things like that early on.
Okay, thank you. And Yvonne, if you can think of any good...
Go see the RDS. Go see the RDS and link to, I think, both your point and Ben's point. If you've got a really simple question to ask yourself the so what question. If I do this, so what? Like, who cares? What's going to happen? And be really tough on yourself with it.
Okay, so I'm pleased we didn't end up with 10 suggestions, we had 9, because plain English came in twice, so that was great, but actually that was really helpful. So, okay, we finished. Before you jump out and go and get your lunch, first I want to thank the panellists and the speakers.